Oh, hey there. Couldn't help but notice my little modern art piece, could you? Yeah, really brings the place together, I think. Now, I know what you're thinking, because you're predictable. Scott, what the fuck am I looking at here? Well, you see, I decided to take a break from my routine content of nothing, and am starting to create things with the YouTube account I have. Wacky concept, I know. Turns out there is a big market for white dudes giving unsolicited opinions and video essays right now, and this is one of those. But on to this. You see, the reason I'm wearing this stupid shit and have this schizophrenic writing up here is because in this visual cacophony of incomprehensible ramblings lay a couple ethical questions that I want to talk about today. Primarily being, what sort of experiences are we promised when we play a game? Do we actually own any of the games that we play if they're in a digital format? And of course, number 3, should developers be able to mess with our games while we play them? Ladies and gentlemen, and those beyond the binary, welcome to Spaceman Scott. We're gonna start this video off by talking about the TikTok that inspired it all. A conspiracy theory post by Samantha Sims, or Halloween Host 69, discussing how they believe that Markiplier's 17-hour livestream of Welcome to the Game 2 was tampered with and made unwinnable by the game's developer. The TikTok is pretty succinct, but for the sake of being thorough as well as adhering to my fetish for long-form content, let me give you some context for why Halloween Host 69 and so many others believe this theory. Welcome to the Game 2 is the sequel to the indie horror game, Welcome to the Game.
God, this game journalism shit's easy!
The game is centered around you trying to save a woman named Amelia from being killed by a deep web murder cult, known as Noir. You do this by scouring page upon page of the game's version of the deep web, attempting to find 8 hashes that will unlock a hidden tunnel to the shadow web, and thus aid you in saving Amelia. You must do all this while avoiding being assassinated, arrested, murdered, or bludgeoned to death with a fucking hammer. Well, that's subtle. You play as an investigative reporter by the name of Clint Edwards, a man who the game's Wikia has no qualms with absolutely roasting the shit out of. Yeah, fucking get him! Aside from all of that, the plot to Welcome to the Game 2 is mostly straightforward. However, the gameplay is a whole other beast. Welcome to the Game 2 is not an easy game. You know, some people say that some games are like a commitment to get good with, or just take forever to learn the controls and essentially be able to know how to play effectively. Well, Welcome to the Game 2 is like an arranged marriage with a Rube Goldberg machine. There are a near infinite amount of things for you to keep track of, like your motion sensors, police radio, how many lights you have on in your apartment, where to place your VPN, getting hacked, making money while you're getting hacked, stopping the process of getting hacked altogether, Wi-Fi networks, literal hacking into different Wi-Fi networks, power outages, hiding from hitmen, hiding from breathers, hiding from Noir, but not really because it's just actually a high-stakes game of peekaboo, and of course, Amazon delivery services. As I said, the game is demanding, requiring a lot of time, energy, skill, and unfortunately, luck to beat. But now that we know the basics of the game, let's talk more about the theory. Meet Adam the Web Pro Flatow, a self-proclaimed game programmer and the main guy running Reflect Studios. Adam's been making games for the better part of the last decade, with the Welcome to the Game series being his flagship IP, not including his other works like Scrutinized or the definitely one day totally gonna be released Riots with Strangers.
You heretic!
I make jokes, but in truth, it's actually pretty astounding the amount of work that Adam's put into his games, with Welcome to the Game 2 itself being the product of over 2,000 man-hours between pretty much just 2 people, Adam and another developer. Our other person of interest is Mark Fishbach, a YouTuber who's been on the platforms. You know who Markiplier is, move on. For those of you who don't know, Markiplier famously played Welcome to the Game 2 for a combined 17 hours across 6 different live streams, and it went pretty good. Over the course of each stream, you can see Mark slowly improve his strategy and skill at the game, learning new tactics, improving on the ones he already knows, and learning in real time, often the hard way, what to and not to do. But all the while, and in classic Markiplier fashion, he had no issues sharing his true feelings about the game.
But I'm excited about this game. I mean, I don't know if it's actually going to be a good game because the last game was a little bit, I don't know, tedious, to say the least.
Hello? I need to hide. I need to...
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but god damn it, it's fun. Acting. That's another bullshit thing about this game. It's very hard to restart. God, it's so punishing. Why in the ass would it be as punishing as it is? Damn it, that's impossible! Fuck you! It's fucking impossible! Ah! I hate life! I hate this game! It's so stupid! Fuck you, game developers! I'm gonna fucking say it, because this game is bullshit! This game is fucking bullshit!
Yeah, he felt strongly about it. Now why is this important? Because it establishes motive. Also, I sat through 17 hours of Markiplier playing this game, and I will be damned if I don't put these notes to good use. Look, I even drew pictures! But back to motive. As previously stated, Mark was consistently open about his downright hatred for the game's RNG, stiff difficulty, and wonky mechanics, even calling out the developers as you just saw. But why does this matter? Are we really gonna theorize that Adam fucked with Markiplier's games because he said some mean shit about him? Yes. Why? Because this wouldn't be the first time it's happened. Enter a little video called Welcome to the Troll. Meet Castora. Castore? Meatcast, a Twitch streamer that frequently played Welcome to the Game 2 after its initial launch and the years that followed, dedicating himself to becoming better at the game despite its near Sisyphean difficulty. And I mean, he played Welcome to the Game 2 a lot, like more than 120 hours in the game a lot, primarily live on Twitch for his viewers to see. However, one fateful day in early 2020 would change all of that. While Cast was playing, he began to wonder how the game's developer, Adam, sourced all the horrific, gory imagery that could be found on the game's different websites.
What even is that sound? Where does Adam get that? Right? On my crate, like, what the fuck, Adam?
After a viewer commented that Adam seemed like a weird guy, Cast responded with this.
Adam is a weird guy? I can never get a good read on Adam, dude. Like, sometimes I feel like all due respect, because I love his games, right? I just want to say my honest opinion based off of what I can tell, just like a read on a person. I've seen different people say different things about Adam. I've seen different people say Adam is like a legitimate psychopath and he's got like crazy big issues and shit. And then other people say he's really nice. He always seemed like a big asshole, kind of like an asshole to me. I don't know, because I don't know him personally. I have huge respect for his games, but he did seem kind of like an asshole, right?
Now, obviously, that's not nice, and the whole comment was pretty unnecessary. However, what followed next was at least 10 times more unnecessary. As it turned out, Adam was watching the stream, and he didn't much care for Cast's comments. Seemingly out of nowhere, Cast's game became an unwinnable mess, as Adam put him on what he called an auto-script, which would auto-activate both Lucas, the hitman, and the game's secret fifth antagonist, the dollmaker. Real quick note here, I didn't talk about it earlier, but Welcome to the Game 2 has a secret fifth antagonist, though most players probably won't even come across him, as he's only activated if you go to the dollmaker's website. Cast never visited that website on the stream, yet, like clockwork, the dollmaker still appeared. Now you may be asking yourself, wait, how the hell is Adam able to manipulate Cast's game while he plays? Great question, I don't really know. After reading a few very unhelpful Reddit threads and doing a bit of research, the best explanation I can come up with is that every time you start Welcome to the Game 2, at least whenever this feature existed, your game sent a post request to an external website where Adam was able to see a unique line of code for each player who's connected to the internet while playing. Some people have called this a backdoor into the game, which is the term I'll be using from here on out. From there, it's as simple as him finding out which line of code belongs to the player he intends to mess with, and then, well, see for yourself.
I accidentally insulted Adam when he was in the stream, so my account got put on an auto script so that the dollmaker and the hitman would be active instantly. So like my game is like hard stuck unplayable on my account now. It's pretty fucking bad. It's bugged. It's actually bugged. It's actually bugged. What the fuck was that? I couldn't click on that square. This is permanent. How am I ever gonna play this game normally again? I can't. I won't. I'll have to use a different account. Kill me. I knew it. I had a feeling. I knew. I just knew. It's just as much of a fucking...
You can't keep getting away with it!
Adam went on to mess with Cast's game for a combined 2 hours, consistently spawning Lucas and the Dollmaker over and over and over again.
Is it winnable? Not really.
But I mean, it's not too bad, right? I mean, it's an auto script. Chances are that Adam just put his game on it and then left the stream a while ago. It's still shitty, but oh, wait, no, there was no auto script. And Adam has spent the last 2 hours manually ruining Cast's game, repeatedly. At first, Cast assumes that it's just a practical joke that Adam's playing on him, but Mr. Flatow wastes no time killing that theory, admitting that he did all of this because Cast called him an asshole. He then goes on to claim that Cast was farming his game for viewers.
I mean, that's what Twitch is.
Before threatening to leak his and Cast's Twitter DMs, to which Castora goes ahead and shows all their messages live on stream. Adam goes on to block Cast on Twitter and kick him from the official Reflect Studios Discord server.
He ruined the game, sabotaged the stream, and then blocked me on Twitter.
Class act. Now, was this justified? I don't care. I'll tell you what it is, though. Proof that Adam can and has fucked with people's streams in the past, all because of a single insult against him. Now that we know that, were there any times in which Mark made insults toward—
Fuck you! It's fucking impossible! Fuck you, game developers! I'm gonna fucking say it, because this game is bullshit! This game is fucking bullshit! It's fucking stupid, and it's broken, and your hack games are inconsistent! It's just so fucking bullshit! It's fucking bullshit, and I don't care who knows it! It's fucking bullshit!
That was a trick question. So we have our motive, and we have our means. Hell, we even know that Adam was watching at least a few of Mark's streams thanks to Mark visiting his Twitter.
Whoa, shit, are they gonna fuck with my game?
And from a few now deleted tweets of Adam's live reactions. It seems pretty open and shut. Mark incurred the wrath of Adam from Reflect Studios due to his consistent anger and criticism of both the game and its developers. And Adam, who we've just proved has the ability to do so, punished Mark like he punished Cast, making his game unwinnable. Or did he? So, here's the part of the video where things get a little bit nebulous. You see, I would love to be able to say to you that I can prove without a shadow of a doubt that Adam fucked with Markiplier's game. However, it doesn't seem very likely. After taking pretty extensive notes on all 17 plus hours of Markiplier's streams of the game, how long he was on each Wi-Fi, all of his deaths, what Adam was able to do with the game at the time in its current build, it doesn't look like he actually messed with this game. Trust me, I wish that I could say that he did, because it would have made for a much better story, but after reviewing all of this stuff, it doesn't seem pretty likely. And if anything, the evidence shows that it's almost certain he didn't. Let me explain. As previously stated, I went ahead and took a shit ton of notes on all of Markiplier's streams. 17 hours worth of Welcome to the Game 2 content, just so I could fully familiarize myself with the mechanics of the game, as well as be able to properly suss out any foul play. I analyzed every single game over that he experienced, matched it up with the mechanics of the game that we knew to be true, and even kept a timer for how long Mark was on every Wi-Fi connection, all to see if there was any amount of manipulation afoot. And honestly, there really wasn't. The most suspicious thing I saw was in the 6th and final stream in which Mark dies to Noir 2 times in a row, in a death that even the game's wikia describes as an obscure insta-kill. Again, it's not conclusive evidence that the game was rigged, but it is weird that something that most people call obscure or a pseudo glitch happened 2 times in a row. Another hole in this theory is the timeline itself. You see, Adam released his troll update for Welcome to the Game 2 in early May of 2020, whereas Markiplier's streams of the game took place throughout April 2018. Now, you can make the argument that someone as tech-savvy as Adam the Web Pro could have had access to this sort of feature since the game's initial release, but that would require looking for the specific dev tools in the earlier patches of the game, none of which would be an easy task, at least if you're me. So again, you could make the argument that Adam had the ability to fuck with Markiplier's games all the way back in 2018, but it would really only be conjecture at that point. So you see what I mean? There really is no definitive way to say for certain that he messed with his game with the current available information that we have. However, let me ask you a question. Why are we talking about this? Like, why is this a thing? Should developers really be able to mess with our games while we play them? What kind of ethical issues does that bring up overall? Somebody should make a YouTube video about that. That's right, assholes. This whole video was a red herring to talk about the real topic of the video. Ethics and player experience! So let's talk about developer tomfoolery in video games. For the sake of relevancy as well the fact that it's, fun to talk about, I'm going to be using Adam and his troll update as the main crux of the argument here, because his implementation and subsequent abuse of said update really bring up our biggest ethical questions here. The first being, is it ethical for developers to have access to our games while we play them, if that kind of access can be abused? And 2, if that is okay, what does proper implementation in trolling in this sense actually look like? To get an idea of what I mean, let's take a look at a few other instances in which developers either trolled or interacted with their players while they played. Take the devs of the game Blackout Club, for example. Blackout Club is a co-op horror game that features a group of teenagers trying to unearth the truth behind some paranormal events happening within their little town. The game is novel for its enhanced horror feature that, when opted into, allows for players' voices to be recorded and potentially responded to by the actual developers of the game. Their responses are oftentimes just vague allusions to the game's greater lore, and the developer interaction with players don't go much further than that. Honestly, it's a pretty neat little feature that adds a whole new aspect of replayability and intrigue to the game. Another example is Cluster Truck, a game that's become nearly ubiquitous with its developers' sudden appearances during live streams. Just look up Cluster Truck dev trolling, and you'll find a veritable treasure trove of examples of them joining random streamers and, let's say, enhancing the gameplay.
That means so much to me. Oh. Oh my god.
These developer cameos can range from just them taking the piss with the game's text overlay feature to adding entirely new obstacles like missile barrages, loss of gravity, and all kinds of other weird shit. And as opposed to a backdoor like Welcome to the Game 2's case, Cluster Truck instead makes use of Twitch integration, a feature that streamers can opt into to allow their audience, and sometimes the devs, to dictate what happens in their game. You're probably noticing a trend here. In most, if not all of these instances of developers messing with their players, most if not all of them really find the experience to be, well, really cool or rewarding.
These guys are fucking brilliant.
This is super cool.
And on the face of it, I agree. Most if not all of these devs only actively mess with their players with intentions of either enhancing the game itself or just playing a practical joke, one that most of the time the players are happy to be a part of. And this is sort of the main defense that Adam and his fans have used when it comes to defending the troll update's existence, is that at the end of the day, it was only meant to be a joke. True to this defense, there are a few recorded instances in which Adam messes with streamers' games in a mostly unintrusive and just sort of meany way, whether that be through playing music over the in-game PC's browser, writing them little notes in-game, or just adding the occasional mild inconvenience.
Where did that plane from?
If that were all he did, then I'd probably not be making this video right now, since this sort of thing is just, I don't know, tame and innocent. But as Adam's shown us, this feature can absolutely be abused. Before we go on though, I want to talk a little bit about that defense that both Adam and his fan base have had. This is way too much fucking white space. Maddie, hand me the Markiplier. So before we go on, let's talk about the defense that Adam and his fan base have had about the troll update's existence, because the official story that Adam has said was that this was meant to be a harmless update, primarily made to entertain an audience, his fan base, so to speak. A lot of his fans that quote that there was nothing wrong with this primarily use that as their main defense. However, let's actually talk about that, because I'm not in love with that defense. You see, who was the troll update made for? Because I'm willing to bet it wasn't made for you and me. No, the troll update was made for a very specific person, Adam himself. If you're watching Adam troll people on different streams and you found that amusing whatsoever, that was a pleasant byproduct of what was essentially, at the end of the day, supposed to be Adam just fucking around and playing God for the hell of it. And come on, you really gonna tell me that in that 2-hour trollathon that Adam had against Cast, in which he actively admitted to him that he was doing this because he called him an asshole and he was pissed off and threatened to leak his DMs, that he did the entire 2 hours of ruining his game to be entertaining? To entertain his audience? No. It was vengeful. It was vindictive. And it was amusing to only one person. And I bet you can guess who.
But jokes or not, let's talk about the issue with indie devs being able to manipulate and ruin your game while you play. Even if the official reasoning behind it is for the sake of some lighthearted fun, it's still ultimately signing up unknowing consumers of your game up for an experience that, in most cases, they didn't actively opt into. At least in the case of Welcome to the Game 2. You see, unlike Backroom Club that allows you to decide whether you want to enable the dev tomfoolery or not, or Cluster Truck and its Twitch integration, Welcome to the Game 2 had no such feature. When the troll update was in effect, there was no way for you to be able to opt out of it, essentially making the risk of Adam's manipulation of your game a potentiality every time you opened it. To make matters worse, and I could be wrong here, but I wasn't able to find any actual documentation of Adam announcing this update to the game. Now, he may have made an announcement on his Twitter that was later deleted, or maybe I'm just not finding the obscure dev post hidden somewhere on the internet, but the way it looks right now is that Adam created and released the troll update without telling people. And it was only discovered that he had the ability to mess with players' games after he had already started actively doing so. So not only could you not opt out of this dev trolling, but there's the potential that a lot of people didn't even know that that was a possibility at the time. And that raises the question too of, is your mere launching of the game tacit approval of having Adam mess with you? Now I want to make something clear here because it's important that we understand a few things before going into whether this sort of thing is ethical or not. The chances of Adam actively messing with your game and ruining your experience, at least while the update was in effect, were very slim. From all the research I've done, it seems like Adam was only interested in trolling people who were streaming the game, primarily because there was a bigger audience and because Adam could actually see his trolling having an effect in real time. If you weren't streaming the game and were just playing it, Adam would essentially have no reason to troll you, outside of deciding to be an asshole to one person in particular. But while the chances of him messing with some random person's game is slim to pretty much zero, you still have to consider that while the update existed, it was still a possibility, despite how slim. I found an old speedrunning guide to Welcome to the Game 2 that was posted around the time the troll update went live. It describes how anyone wanting to speedrun the game should strongly consider downgrading their copy or downloading a patch that would effectively remove the dev tools that made Adam's trolling possible. Honestly, it's sorta ominous reading about what speedrunners had to go through to make sure their runs wouldn't become invalidated. No longer are you just fighting against virtual antagonists to the game's unforgiving RNG, but instead, you're up against a real, tangible person who, despite how unlikely it might be, could actively ruin your speedrun. Forget about Big Brother's watching, Big Brother's playing. So when speedrunners have to actively downgrade their copy of the game to avoid being the target of the developer's personal amusement, it might be time to start asking the question, is this ethical? Is this okay? Is one man's practical joke worth the potential invalidation of a speedrun or the manipulation of someone's desired experience from a product they purchased? Should we be okay with this practice becoming more commonplace, even if further abuses aren't all that common? Is the potentiality of another Adam-type troll too high of a risk for developers to continue to engage in this kind of trolling? And if the answer to that is no, shouldn't players, or rather consumers at the very least, have a say in whether they consent to have the games they bought messed with by an outside force? Sure, we don't actually own any of the digital media we purchase, but we do own access to it. And if you bought Welcome to the Game 2 around the time of the Troll Update's release with the express hope to get a grounded, hardcore horror experience, and you instead were met with sort of that, mixed in with the developer playing Dr. Disrespect music and putting dumbass pop-ups on your screen, wouldn't it be fair to say that you didn't really get what you paid for? You see, I don't want to come across as anti-fun here. A lot of you watching are probably not going to see an issue with this sort of thing, since most of the time developers troll their players, it's been a positive experience. And I too think that there's definitely a place for this kind of developer interaction between themselves and their consumers. But my main point here is that shouldn't players get a say in whether they want to have that experience? Should all games that feature developer trolling follow in the footsteps of Backroom Club or Cluster Truck's Twitch integration and have this kind of feature be opt-in only? But wouldn't that negate the possibility of being trolled? Isn't the spontaneity half the fun, I hear you ask? And sure, it may ruin the surprise for some people, but at the end of the day, the likelihood of the devs messing with your specific game after you opted into the feature would still be as likely as it would have been if you hadn't been given the option. The only difference now is that you're aware that you could be given this kind of experience, and you're actually consenting to potentially having it. That's why this is so up to interpretation. You may think that I'm being too reactionary or pearl-clutching, and that making a whole video about one instance of a developer abusing their powers happening in a sea of positive experiences is ultimately unnecessary. On the other hand, if you're not all that in love with the idea that a developer can have access to your game, see when you play it, or be able to mess with you without your permission, then you'd probably think that there's some merit to having this conversation. So in the end, the answer to our two questions are ultimately up to you. Do you think the developers should have the ability to mess with our individual experiences for the sake of their own amusement? Even if there's the potential of it being a really shitty, abusive experience like in Castora's situation?
That is fucking pathetic!
And if you do think the developer trolling should happen, do you think that it's best to have it locked behind a menu setting that you have to actively opt into? Or do you prefer the spontaneity of being auto-signed up for it as soon as you launch the game? Questions like these don't have easy answers, and more likely than not, you could make a pretty strong argument for why developer trolling is either fine and awesome, or presents a glaring ethical dilemma for players' personal privacy and their overall experiences with the games they purchase. Ultimately, though, that's up for you to decide. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. In the past year, we haven't really seen as many instances of developer trolling, at least not to the extent of years past. I wasn't able to find any more clips of the Cluster Truck devs messing with streamers from like the last 4 years, and from what I've been able to figure out from my research, it seems like they don't really do that anymore. The Backroom Club still has its enhanced horror feature, which continues to be opt-in only. In August of 2020, Adam took to Twitter to officially announce that he was rolling back the Troll Update to Welcome to the Game 2, and that he would never be doing anything like this ever again. He states that the toxicity of cancel culture and the like were the main reasons of him doing so, which seems like a really weird way to say I was held accountable for my shitty actions, so I'm backpedaling an already controversial feature, but hey, I guess eating crow isn't his first language. Though as Adam continues work on his next all-online multiplayer experience, Masks of Deception, it's worth pondering the question, how soon is never again? Also, I wasn't going to mention this, but this game is pretty much just Among Us with exorcisms, and is also, as some of you keen-eyed viewers may have noticed, not Rides with Strangers. Markiplier is still out there making an
unfathomable amount of money.
Yes.
And Castora continues to stream on Twitch, though doesn't play many Reflect Studio games anymore. Couldn't imagine why.
And so, noble viewer, at the end of the day, the answer is ultimately up to you. All of our ethical questions that I brought up, that's for you to decide. But if nothing else, I do hope that I was able to get you thinking about an aspect of gaming you may not have before. I'd like to give a big shout out to Samantha Sims or HalloweenHo69 on TikTok. Their video about conspiracy theories inspired this, like, I think a year and a half ago. I've been wanting to make this video, so big shout out to them. Go follow their TikTok page, they make really good content. And also, sorry about the fact that you probably got like 17 different notifications that I kept viewing your profile. I promise, I'm not a stalker, I'm a video essayist, which might be worse. And of course, if you like this video, be sure to like this video and subscribe. And do anything else you do at the end of a YouTube video. I would say click on other content on the channel, but it's mostly just 15-year-old me reading creepypastas very badly, so maybe avoid that if possible. I want to keep making content like this in the future, and who knows, if we hit a like goal of 2, I may even talk about some even more niche topics, oh boy! But, of course, at the end of the day, I hope you guys enjoyed. And hey, who knows, maybe, just maybe, in a few more months and a few more of these, I may actually know how to end a YouTube video.
Bring it on, burn it down, pave a lane, right, do it now. Ooh, let it go, let it fall, run through, destroy ya. Bring it on, burn it down, pave a lane, right, do it now. Let it go, fuck 'em all, run through, destroy ya. Bring it all down and they'll babble about what they lost. Take down the towers of doubt in the dark and the frost.
Holy fuck, this is a lot of white space.
I know. You add to it.
Excuse me?